Hello everybody, my buddy Sal has now become a famous photographer, and this is his GFX100. I still don't have my GFX100 yet. Are you listening, Fujifilm? Uh, what you want to do, by the way, and it's the exact same procedure as that on the Fujifilm X-H1. You need to go over to your shooting settings and you go to IS mode and turn it off. And you'd think that would turn off the IBIS mech for sensor stabilization, but what it does, since there's no actual physical locking mechanism, it just actually holds the sensor in place. And then what you also want to do is go turn on electronic shutter. That in case, of course, you need to actually clean the sensor with the camera on, that there would be no shutter mech drop, because if the shutter mech dropped and you accidentally, stupidly, which I would never do, hit the shutter release button, that there's no actual physical shutter dropping. But the other alternative, I actually do both, is go to shoot without lens. The default from factory is off. In other words, the shutter mech and the camera cannot take a picture if you accidentally press the shutter release, but go ahead and turn that off. So I'm going to do a sensor cleaning, but when I'm doing that on his GFX100, by the way, Fujifilm uses full frame sensor paddles. You actually have to use 2 swipes to do that, but I'm actually going to use, of course, 2 swabs probably because the sensor is really dirty. Sal, if you could actually talk, I've done a video or mentioned you about a year ago that you're now a famous photographer. You're doing street photography and you've been featured on the news, and now you're going to go to a famous college for your exhibition. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if I'm, really famous, but yeah. So I've had a chance to, exhibit some of my street work right here in Florida, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. And yeah, so in September I'll be exhibiting at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, and then later on in the year I'll be in Largo. Having an exhibit there. But, I fell with street photography, 4 years ago. And the reason why I have, worked with the GFX system is because of Mr. Wheeler. Because of his recommendations, both for the 50S and the 100S. I can't be more pleased, and I trust Ken explicitly.
I have to interrupt you now because everybody leave a comment because they'll see something like, what are you doing? You're actually only supposed to do 1 swipe this way and 1 swipe that way, and I saw you use the paddle again. You went like this. The reason for that, and that's the reason why I said I would use 2 sensor paddles, is this sensor was really, really dirty. And yes, I used a rocket blower. By the way, everybody should go on eBay and buy this. I've owned like 100 different air blowers. You think, well, it just looks like a grenade. No, the actual air pressure from these is really, really good. It's actually an excellent air blower. You can buy for $6 on eBay. But I already used this first sensor paddle to get all the schmutz off, and that is why I was actually doing this number and this number and this number. You would normally never do that on a sensor cleaning because I actually have to talk about that because people will attack and like, well, yeah, do you know about sensor cleaning? I've cleaned thousands and thousands of sensors, but this one was really, really dirty, but I did blow it off ahead of time, but there's a bunch of schmutz. Everybody knows what the word schmutz is, so that's the reason why I was dragging the paddle this way and this way and this way, is actually to get all of that off before I actually used the second paddle. So there's a $5 paddle down. Sorry, go ahead on what you're talking about.
No, I think
I'm just impressed by all your street photography, and you even said that you gave the proceeds. If you could actually talk about that and how cool that is.
Well, so I'm retired, and if I exhibit and I sell some of my images, I do recover my processing cost. Because I send it to a lab, but the balance either goes to a homeless shelter or to a food bank. And again, it's just to raise awareness of some people, that are less fortunate than others. And so I try not to make any money off of them. So that's why all the proceeds, the balance, they're all donated.
Yeah, okay. And also, too, by the way, when you do this, go into your power saving mode. I already did that, and it's default is set for 2 minutes. In other words, if you're not messing with the camera will think, you're just putzing around. It will turn itself off. So you want to turn that off. You turn off the power saving feature. Of course, when you're done with the sensor cleaning, then turn it back on to the defaults you had. So power saving off, turn image stabilization, i.e. the IBIS mech off, but when it's off, it's still stabilizing. What it's doing is holding the sensor in place, and of course the camera is on when you're doing a sensor cleaning on either your Fujifilm X-H1 or the GFX100. And also too, electronic shutter, turn that on, and also turn off shoot without lens. That is actually factory default, but a lot of people turn that on so they can use adapted lenses. I have to reiterate, and I mentioned that in the other video, is so vitally important, is that you need to keep your body caps extremely clean, and also too the rear caps on your lenses extremely clean, because what happens is it migrates from here to the back of the lens. When you mount the lens, it goes from here directly to the sensor, and that's actually much worse on an IBIS mech, because it's actually constantly shuffling all that dust and schmutz around and creep its way around the sensor into the actual suspension mechanism that actually is the play, the multi-axis play for the actual sensor stabilization to occur. So it's actually, and I'm not mentioning this in video before, however it's really important, if you actually have an IBIS camera, it's much more important to keep it clean than it is just a regular non-moving, or I call it a dancing sensor. So I'm sure everybody's going to make fun of me because I'm wearing a tank top and I have these plugs in my ears, but the important thing is I actually know what I'm doing, and I'm doing a sensor cleaning for my buddy that actually came down from Tampa to hear my pathetic little tiny home in Fort Myers, Florida. And thank you so much for watching, and I wanted to put a link below later today when Sal sends it to me for his work, and thank you so much for watching.